Jimmy, what's up? How are you?
Not too much. Hope everybody's doing well there.
TennesseeTitans.com is where you can consume his Titans information. And let's start with this, Jimmy. Titans trade a seventh-round pick for reserve offensive tackle from Cleveland, Leroy Watson. Seems like that has OLJ written all over it. Bill Callahan, offensive line Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly has something to do with it. And I think also you're looking at what you have and maybe what this draft looks like. And you figure that Leroy Watson is better than what you're going to be able to find in the seventh round of the draft at tackle. So he'll come in and compete. You know, he hasn't played a whole lot in his time in the league, but as you mentioned, I mean, he's been with Bill Callahan, and they're not making that move if Bill Callahan doesn't sign off on it. Rand Carthon also spent time with him in San Francisco, was part of that group that acquired him. So that's two people who can speak on his behalf, and so into the mix. I think there's a lot of when you look at what this team has now. The one clear spot that they still need help is left tackle, but I think they've got a lot of guys who can compete at other spots, and he'll add depth there, and be interested to see how he looks.
In his limited reps, he did have reps last year, in-game reps at left tackle and right tackle. So it seems like they do like guys that are movable pieces up front.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about versatility, and you can only stretch. I mean, you want guys to be able to do a lot of things, but you also want guys to be able to lock in. So everybody's in a different boat. I think there's some value in playing left tackle, right tackle. You look at a guy like Dylan Radins, who's played tackle on left side, right side. He's played guard. It seems like they're wanting to lock him in at guard now, and there'll be other guys who they'll want to identify their best spot and try to get them work there. But another piece guy who will compete, and we'll see what he's got.
Jimmy, you're doing a lot of homework, man. You've been doing it over the years as well when getting closer to the draft, and you're sometime able to kind of get a sense of which way the Titans may go. What in your idea, what is something, I saw your mock draft was out, what is something that you would hone in on when you're talking about the Titans and this big-time pick they got?
Yeah, man, it seems like everybody's honing in on Joe Alt. I mean, when I do these mocks, and that he is a very popular pick, and I get it. He's regarded as the best offensive lineman in this draft, regarded as a top flight player. This is a team again that needs an offensive tackle. But there's no certainty that he's going to even be there at 7. I mean, nobody really knows what's going to happen 1 through 6. There's a lot of buzz now that quarterbacks are going 1 through 4. I don't know if it'll play out that way. But what's going to be interesting is if he is picked at 5 by the Chargers, or if some other guys fall, and I'm talking about Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors.
Right.
Then your decision is which of those guys has the best value and which guy can help you long term. Because I don't think you draft just to fill your need right now. Again, this team needs a left tackle, but there's still some other tackles out there in free agency that you could get. You pick who you think is the best player, the most dynamic player, and if somebody falls to you that you think is a can't miss guy who's going to change the look of things on either side of the ball, then I think you've got to consider that rather than just picking a guy because he makes you feel better for 2024.
Well, to that point, a little bit later in the show, we're going to kind of go through roster spots and I guess the lack of depth at a lot of different places on this roster, not just offensive line. What would you say is second most needed, and not necessarily talking first round pick, but maybe later round picks where you can kind of build some depth? Where would you pinpoint that's really needed on this roster?
Yeah, I think it's tackle. I think it's defensive line. I think it's inside backer. I think it's safety. I think you need more help at edge, and then again, I think receiver. Because obviously this team signed Calvin Ridley, who's going to be a game changer for him. Deandre Hopkins still playing at a high level. Hopkins' contract is up. That doesn't necessarily mean this is his last year here, but you have to think about things past this year when you're drafting. So I think receiver is still a need for this team. So that's the groups I think. I mean, and that's a lot of groups. I mean, this team's still a work in progress and has needs across the board. But O-line, D-line, inside back, or safety, receiver, edge are the areas I kind of identify.
Yeah, we're going to go through the Titans roster at 420 and just kind of try to identify like what the options are at that point. The man sighing very loudly just as you were talking about positions and wide receivers just put his Traylon Burks jersey on for the first time today.
Yep.
Today, but for like the 8th time this week already.
Yep. You named a couple that they got in the stable. You left one out, and that was as a representative of my guy. I'm gonna need you to say his name for me, Jimmy.
I like Traylon Burks,
Thank
and he's
you.
and I haven't certainly given up on him, but he has to be able to stay healthy and stay in the fight, and he's had some bad luck. Last year I thought he was poised to have a great season, and then he hurt his knee in Minneapolis. The practices against the Vikings. It took him a while to come back from that. Then he had the concussion he dealt with. So, I mean, he still has a lot of potential. Now, I've seen him in the building. He looks good.
Yes.
He looked great last year, though. I mean, he looked good, last year heading the season. So he's just got to stay in the fight and compete. And he's certainly talented, and he'll benefit from having good players around him and guys he can learn from around him.
That's right. Thank you, Jimmy.
No, he did. No, I want to go back to last season because, he came into the season. Remember, obviously he had the problems his rookie year with the asthma thing and all that. And then he came back that next offseason and worked and worked and worked. He stayed
that same
here.
offseason.
And worked and worked and worked. And then he gets hurt in the preseason game. We were talking about this the other day. I just wonder if it gets in your head at some point too. You know what I mean? When you're out there running routes in week 2 and I don't know.
It gets in your head when you're not right. I mean, it was clear when he came back.
For sure,
he went down in Minnesota, and then when he did come back, he came back sooner than people thought he would. But then he had all kinds of wraps on his knee, and they stayed on it for a while. And I don't think he really ever mentally got right in coming back from that. And then, maybe once he finally got healthy there, then then Pittsburgh happens on November the 2nd, and that knocked him out of the mix for a month, and he just really hasn't ever been able to get in a flow. And the thing is, when you miss time, then all that work you did in the offseason to get ready from a conditioning standpoint and getting your body fine-tuned and ready to go, you'll lose all of that because you're just not able to keep yourself in the shape and the condition that you're in, and your technique suffers. So he just needs to, Burke specifically just needs to be able to stay on the field and just, stack week after week after week and find some consistency. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to do that.
It's interesting what you brought up at 7. I was thinking with regard to D-Hop, maybe you get him one more year, and so you've got Calvin Ridley, you add a high-profile wide receiver at 7, then you can kind of stair-step those contracts a little bit and maybe absorb the loss of D-Hop next year. And I mean, obviously they're going to draft wide receiver maybe 2 at some point in this draft, right?
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, and with Hopkins, I know his contract is up, and I guess, thinking is that, I think most people conclude that this is probably the last year for him. Yeah, I do think he likes it here, and I think if he has another good year and wants to keep playing, I think they'll make an effort to keep him.
Yeah,
I talked to him at the owners' meetings. He's a guy that's very enthusiastic about what's been built here and the people around him. He loves Rand Carthon. He's good friends with Calvin Ridley. He's high on Will Levis. I mean, I think he feels like that the the way things are going are something he wants to be a part of. So I mean, and again, life after football. I know when Rand talked to Deandre when he came here, he talked to him not just about his playing career, but just about his business interest when his career's over with, and and Nashville is a perfect place for him to do that, to be in the entertainment business. And he's talked about wanting to run music festivals. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're talking about the perfect place. I really think Deandre Hopkins loves Nashville and everything about it. So I could, if as long as he's playing at a high level, I could see him being back in 2025 again, even though his contract's up after this year.
Interesting. So you mentioned earlier, so the other safety, there are a bunch of safeties out there. Like they could go grab a free agent safety right now if they wanted to. But do you think that they address that that way at some point, and maybe inside linebacker? Just been talking to people around the league, and those two positions seem to be the ones that are going the expendable route, like running back has been talked about so long, and that safety and inside linebacker are the next two. Could they just go out and get those positions fixed in the market?
I mean, they could. I mean, I there's a possibility they draft them, but if there's another player that that you value more when it comes your time to pick, then again, you're not picking just to fill spots. You're picking to try to build for years and years to come. And once the draft's over with, negotiating power for the free agents that are out there right now goes down significantly. You're able to get these guys on cheaper deals, get them on 1-year deals. So, you could wait it out, but they're doing their homework on inside backers, or doing their homework on safeties, and not outside the realm possibility. Those guys are picked as well.
Jim Wyatt, TennesseeTitans.com with us. 9 days away, so it's interesting. How has the way the draft unfolds changed for you in your career from when you were at the Tennessee and compared to now working with the team?
Well, I go now. Like when I was with the Tennessee, and I never went, and now I do go to the first round at least. Really for the draft build up on Wednesday. The prospects are available. NFL Network talent's available. There's a lot of draft lead up stuff that's kind of cool to cover, and working for the team, it's something that I'm fortunate that we do cover. There'll be red carpet on day of the draft, and if the pick is there, then we'll have an opportunity to talk to him right when he comes off the stage. Sometimes that's worked out. It worked out when Jack Conklin was a pick, and it worked out when Corey Davis was the pick. And I talked to Dory Jackson after one of those drafts, and sometimes it doesn't work out. Last year I was in Kansas City, and Peter Skoronski was the pick, and he was not in Kansas City. He was at a pizza parlor in Chicago. So right. Sometimes it's a home run and your guy's there. Other times he's not. But I'll be there for the day one, and then I'll be on a flight, back here that leaves Detroit at let me look at my itinerary. I'm already dreading this flight at 6:50 a.m. and then back in at 7:25 a.m. On Friday, April the 26th. So may not be sleeping much on Thursday night.
I love it. It's going to be fun. And, man, I mean, if all and two of those receivers are there at 7, that's going to be one of the most anticipated draft picks outside of the quarterback here that we've seen, from a fan base perspective.
Yeah, because it gives you time to consider what you want to do and who you want to take, but it also, that pick becomes pretty valuable. If somebody wants to move up, and it's just a matter of how far you can move back and still get a player that you covet.
Love it. Thank you, Jimmy. Good stuff. Appreciate you, brother.
Okay. Y'all have a good one. Appreciate it.
All right. At Jay Wyatt Sports for him on X.